Hi everyone and welcome. My name's Emma and this is my podcast where I share all of my knitting and crochet. It has been about 5 weeks since I last recorded a podcast. It's my first podcast of 2025 and I've got lots of lovely things to share with you today. I've got some finished objects, I've got new projects, I've got some new yarn. The last episode that I filmed was kind of a quick roundup of everything that I had sort of on the go at the time, and a couple of those projects I've actually decided not to continue with. A couple of them have, or one of them, sorry, has been shelved, but I'll go through all of that. I will start off by letting you know what I'm wearing. So this is the Monday sweater by Petite Knit, and in my last episode, I hadn't even started this. I cast this on Boxing Day on December the 26th, and I finished it in about a month. And I started this to use up some yarn that I'd frogged from another project that I just wasn't feeling much love for. I did plan to work on my Ingrid sweater over Christmas, and in fact, that's one of the projects that has been shelved for now. I found that after working on Isla's Moby sweater for so long, which is obviously quite an involved pattern, lots of following of charts, there's lots of cables and seed stitch and things like that. I cast on this Monday sweater and it just felt like such a nice relief to be working on just a plain and a simple raglan sweater for a change, where I didn't have to really concentrate or think that much. So this project, I can't remember whether it had been on my list and whether I found the project and then decided to use up the yarn that I'd frogged from the other project, or whether I frogged the yarn and then went out looking for a pattern to use it with instead. And I'm pretty sure that I came across the pattern and then decided to use the yarn for that, because technically speaking, it's not the right yarn for the pattern. So the pattern does call for fingering weight yarn held together with some mohair to make a DK weight. And the yarn that I've used is Drops Lima, which is just a DK weight. So I didn't hold anything together. So it does look a little bit different than how it's meant to. It feels really heavy and quite dense, but it's in a good way. It's really nice and cozy. It's going to be a really nice sweater just for lounging around the house and things like that. It's a really easy, simple pattern, and I really love how it looks now that it's finished. I'd been planning to make a no frills sweater by Petite Knit. I've already made one of those and I really liked it. And I've got some yarn here actually that I'm going to talk about in a moment. But I've been planning to use some of that yarn to make another no frills, because it is nice to have some more complicated sweaters, shall I say, to work on, but it's also nice just to have some basic pieces, isn't it? Just to wear, but and to knit as well. And I think now that I've made this Monday sweater, I actually much prefer the fit of this. It's very basic, like the no frills, but it kind of takes it just to an extra level. So the neckline is a folded neckline, so it makes it look really nice and polished here around the edge, and it makes it lovely and squishy. And it's got lots and lots of ribbing. I'd say that was the only downside. If you don't enjoy working one by one rib, there's a lot of it on this pattern. At the bottom of the actual body of the sweater, you have to knit for about 9 centimeters. And then on the sleeves, the cuff is huge, you have to knit for 12 centimeters. So there is quite a lot of ribbing, but it is definitely worth it, in my opinion, in the end, because it creates just a lovely shape to the sweater once it's finished. This has been blocked now, and it definitely grew a little bit. I made this one size bigger than what I would normally do. So I did want something that was quite oversized, and I'll pop in a video so that you can get a better idea of how it fits and how it looks. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with it, and I'm already planning to make another one. So last year I was very kindly gifted some yarn by Arcane Fiberworks, which I've got here, and they sent me 3 skeins each of this colour here, which is called Puppy Paws and is just beautiful. It's a really lovely, soft, dusky pink. And they also sent me this beautiful burgundy colour. It's looking ever so slightly brighter on camera, I think. It doesn't look as red as that in real life. It's kind of got more of a red wine purpley tint to it in real life. And neither of these, to be honest, are colours that I would wear straight up. But because it has to be held together with some mohair, I'm thinking that I could get some mohair that's a slightly different shade and perhaps turn it down a little bit and create like a mild effect. And I'm thinking with the burgundy, I'm not sure how it will work, but possibly kind of like a rust colour or a rusty brown. And we'll see how that would look. But yeah, those are my plans. I'm definitely going to making another Monday sweater because I love it. And if you're looking for just a really easy basic raglan, then yeah, I would highly, highly recommend it. I have 2 more finished objects. Well, actually I have 3, but one of them is kind of cheating, so we'll leave that one until the end. I have made this really lovely crochet scarf, and this was a bit left of field, this one. I just really fancied making something like this, and I'm going to try it on to show you, but it's not really my colour. Sophie was very, very kind and agreed to model this for me for photos because this is has been released as a pattern, or you can follow the free YouTube tutorial for it. So I bought the yarn with Sophie in mind, and this colour suits her much, much better, but I'm going to put it on to show you anyway. So I've used Drops Nord to make this, and it just makes a really simple, lovely scarf like that. And it's just really nice when you have a coat that doesn't have a lot of room. So my winter coat it zips right up. It's got a really big collar and a hood, and it zips right up like this. And I don't always have room for a really big scarf. So something like this that can just, it's quite small is a really nice option. It just stops a bit of a draft and still keeps you really nice and warm, and it's really good for using up leftovers of yarn. It uses just under 35 grams of 4-ply yarn, so I use Drops Nord, but my testers, quite a lot of them just use leftover hand-dyed yarn, and one of my testers in particular has gone into a bit of a phase now of making matching scarves to go with sweaters that she's made hand-dyed yarn in. They look amazing. So this is, sorry, I forgot to say the name. I'm naming this the Isla Scarf Mini. My other daughter is Sophie, and for obvious reasons, I couldn't call it the Sophie scarf. So yeah, this is the Isla Scarf Mini. I do currently have another version of this, a big version on the needles, on the hook at the moment. But I'm kind of putting it away until autumn, I think. Same as my Ingrid sweater, actually. I did start to work on my Ingrid again and picked up the sleeve and started working it, but it's so big and heavy, and I know we're only in February, but I'm kind of looking forward to spring now. All the bulbs are starting to poke through in the garden. We've got snowdrops and crocuses, and I don't want to work on it because by the time it's finished, it will probably be too warm to wear it. So my Ingrid sweater has been shelved, but I have all intentions of picking that back up again later on in the year and finishing it in time for autumn winter this year. But yes, that has been shelved, and in the same way, the larger version of this that I've been working on, which is in this lovely mustardy colour, I'm using drops yarn again. I am a big fan of drops. I just think it's such good value for money, and it wears really well too. Yeah, I'm using this really lovely mustardy colour, and it's going to be a lot more like a shawl. It's going to be quite big, but I'll pop a picture in so that you can see just how far I've got with it. But again, that's going to be popped away until the end of the year. But yes, the Isla scarf, do check it out if you want just something easy and simple to make with some leftovers that you might have from a pair of socks or something. My next project I actually chatted about in my last video because they were a work in progress back then, and I'm talking about my cappuccino socks. I don't think they were called the cappuccino socks the last time I chatted about them, because I don't believe that I had a name, but here they are, and I'll hopefully be able to get a good look at them. It's really funny light today. Yesterday was really nice and sunny, but today's very dull. And I did consider waiting to film later on, but I checked the forecast and it's just going to be dull and rainy for about the next 2 weeks. So I thought I may as well go ahead. I have made these, bring them a little bit closer. I've made these using a sock set called the Cappuccino Sock Set from Loom Wool, whom I am loving at the moment. I am going through a phase of being completely obsessed with Jessie's yarn. I've got 2 more projects coming up in a moment that also use Jessie's yarn. So this was the main colour, and it was only a 50-gram sock set. I believe that's all she had in stock at the moment. I'd seen this colourway, but somebody else had got there before me and nabbed the 100-gram sock set. So I was a little bit limited when I made these on how long I could make the leg of the socks. And this is the contrast colour, bigger. And I haven't weighed this, but this is just slightly smaller than this. I think I've probably got around 10 grams of the main skein left. And they are a little bit shorter, a tiny bit shorter than what I would normally do. It's worked over an 8-row repeat, the pattern, and I did 5 repeats of the pattern for the leg, and I would normally do it a little bit longer. I did start at one point being a little bit lazy with my socks, and I started making them quite short, but looking back, I really regret doing that now because it makes them a little bit unwearable, just because of this. They tend to hit right where the hem or the cuff of my bottom of my jeans is, and it kind of pushes them down. So I find that those socks always tend to fall down, and they kind of frustrate wearing me. They kind of frustrate me wearing them. Sorry, my English is really bad today. So this is kind of the minimum length that I could get away with without them being irritating. They do stay up. I did 15 rounds of a 2x2 half twisted rib, traditional heel flap and gusset, just the slip stitch kind, and then a contrast tour as well. But yeah, I maybe could have done maybe another full repeat on each sock, but yeah, it's fine. I'm happy with them. And they've got just a really pretty texture. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so you can see. Let me take it, just open it up a little bit. So on the front, it's a really easy pattern. It just uses knits and pearls to create this really nice texture. And then if you want to see what the yarn looks like when it's knitted up plain, it looks like this. It's lovely. It's really lovely yarn. I think this main colour could potentially go with so many different colours. So it would be a good one just to have a couple of full skeins in stash of, because then you could use lots of different minis and things to, oh gosh, I've impaled myself, to put together with it. And then I think that would completely change the colour, wouldn't it? I've got a bowl of minis there and I'm tempted to start looking through it. I have just reminded myself about my Monday sweater. There is a point that I wanted to make about it that I forgot to talk about, and that is the cuff. I haven't sewn in the ends on the cuff because I'm currently undecided whether I'm going to wear it with a full cuff like this or whether I'm going to fold it over, because I think that looks nice because then it kind of matches with the folded neckline, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I did think that it would grow a little bit more in blocking, but it hasn't. It did grow lovely. It's got a lovely drape to it now, but yeah, the sleeves have kind of stayed the same length, and I'm not sure. Maybe I should leave one like that for the episode and then see how I feel by the end of it, because I can kind of think that that might end up being potentially a little bit irritating. But yeah, we'll see. I have seen people do it both ways actually. So just back to those socks briefly, those are the Cappuccino socks. Again, that is released as a written pattern. It's irritating me already. There is no video tutorial for that, but it is available on Ravelry, and I will pop a link to that along with everything else that I talk about today in the description box down below. My next finished object is kind of a cheat because it's been finished before. I'm talking about my champagne cardigan, and I'm going to take some video footage again of me wearing it like I did with this, just so that you get a better idea. But here it is. I have redone the button band. So I made this and I believe I finished it in June last year, and it did end up being a little bit of a rush because I was trying to get it finished in time for a holiday. I didn't get it finished just because life and yeah, people were ill. We had trips to emergency walk-in centres and things like that, which just meant that I didn't have any time to work on it for a good week or so. And I think because I was rushing partially to get it done, I just really wasn't happy with the result. I did gauge swatch for this cardigan, and that did mean that I had to go down a needle size to match to get gauge. This is a pattern by Petite Knit, by the way, but you'll probably know that already. And although the actual main cardigan fit lovely, I definitely had issues with gauge on the button band. It was much too small, the gauge, and it cinched the full thing in. And when I wore it, it kind of rose up at the back and then also all around the neckline kind of bunched up because it was too tight. I actually used a 2.5mm knitting needle to work the placket, which is very small. That's like a sock knitting size. So I redid it. So I frogged the full thing. Luckily, I already had two balls of yarn left over from when I made it in the first place. I did have to buy one more ball of mohair. Probably wasn't the same dye lot, but I think because it's mixed with the original yarn that you can't tell anywhere. I certainly don't notice a difference. And I went up to a 3mm needle this time and made sure that I picked up exactly the right amount of stitches. The pattern doesn't actually give a number of stitches that you need to pick up, which would have helped, I think. It just basically says pick up one stitch for each row and stitch that you've got, which will depend on how long you've made the cardigan. And I think if I had a number that I was aiming for, it would have made things a little bit easier for me, but never mind. I made sure that I worked and picked up stitches very accurately this time, although I don't think that was the problem the time before. I think it was a tension thing. And I was also unhappy last time with the placement of the buttons. So this is the first time, or it was the first time that I've ever made a double knitted button band. So it's one of those button bands, which you'll know, where you attach some stitches or cast on some stitches here, and then you work along towards the side of the cardigan here, and you're knitting one and slipping a stitch, knit one, slip a stitch until you get here. you knit two through the back to join it to the cardigan, and then you turn it, and then on the other side, when you're working back to the outside, you're essentially knitting those slip stitches from the other side, but it gives you a really nice knitted fabric on either side. So there's the front and there's the back, and excuse my ends. So because it's the first time that I'd ever done it, I just blindly followed the instructions in the pattern, whereas this second time I knew a little bit better. I'd learned from experience. The pattern has you pick up all of the stitches all of the way around on a really long cable, and then it has you work out the placement for the buttons. And because I'd picked up all of the stitches and they were all cinched together on the cable, I found it really difficult to get the placement correct, and I wasn't happy with where the buttons were. So this time I knew better, and I marked out the buttonholes before I picked up the stitches, and I am really happy with them this time. So it was this button at the top that was the problem last time. I think I'd done it a bit too far up here because I couldn't quite see. You measure it and mark it according to where the decreases or increases, sorry, on this part here, and then mark it. And then if that one's off, it affects all of the other buttons because you have to work out so that it's got the same number of stitches in between each button so that they're really nice and even. So I am glad that I redid it. I've already said that I'm going to pop some footage in to show you, but yeah, it fits perfectly now. I'm so happy with it. I'm really happy that I went back and took the time to redo it. It probably took me about a week to do it, and I'm not a monogamous knitter really. I do tend to have quite a few projects on the go at once. If I'd been concentrating and working solely just on the placket, I could probably have got it done a bit quicker as well. So that is my fourth finished object, even though it's kind of a bit of a cheat. And I won't talk too much more about the champagne cardigan because I've already talked about it in a previous episode when I first made it, and all the details of the yarn and things are in that episode, but I will find out and I'll pop that in the description box again for you below in case you're interested. Okay, let's chat about what I'm working on at the moment. My first project is another mini skein project. You know how much I love my mini skeins and my scrap yarn and finding ways to use them up. And I went through all of my stash recently. I found all of my minis, all so I thought, and wound them all and popped them all into this lovely yarn ball here. And I later came across these ones that I'd missed, so I still need to wind those actually, but that's a job for another day. And I'll hold it up so you can see. But yeah, I'll pop some footage in so you can get a better idea. And I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do with this, and it's another project that uses the join as you go technique, which I'm also a huge fan of. As you know, anything to avoid sewing in ends when a project's done. If I can join, no, I said that wrong. I don't want to avoid sewing in ends. I want to avoid sewing bits and pieces together. That's what I'm avoiding because you still have ends to sew in, unfortunately, even when you do join as you go. And the problem that I had wasn't the technique. The problem has been finding a stitch that I'm happy with. And I've tried all sorts of stitches. My latest one that I tried is this one, which is just double crochets. That's a single crochet if you are used to US terms. And they're just worked into the front loop, and it just gives this really nice ridged detail. But I don't like how it curls up. I mean, you can kind of see. So, yeah, it went back to the drawing board. And in the end, I started getting a little bit frustrated. And I've decided just to start just a granny square. Because if in doubt, a granny square is always the answer. And this is what I've done so far. I've been very good and I've sewn in most of the ends. I've just got oh yeah, I have sewn them all in. I've just got these ones, and I always leave the very final round to sew in until I've added the next colour, because I like to sew them in underneath the stitches of the next round. But yeah, this is how it's looking, and it's been quite a good project, this, because you can use the smaller skeins or the smaller scraps of yarn, such as this, like I've got for the centre of the square. And then as you get further and further around, obviously as the rounds get bigger, you're going to need more yarn to go all the way around. And then I've got these nice big balls here, lovely mini skeins that I can use to go all the way around the edge. Another way I've been enjoying using up scrap yarn and mini skeins recently is by crocheting these really pretty mini hearts, thanks to Skillshare, who are very kindly sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of creative classes taught by industry experts. It has an incredibly diverse range of topics, from illustration to marketing. For us crafters, as well as classes in knitting and crochet, there are topics including sewing, embroidery, needle felting, and drawing, just to name a few. If you're looking to up your professional game, there are classes on Canva and video and photo editing too. I've really enjoyed Hearts, the perfect beginner crochet project by Khara Pilcanic. These mini hearts are adorable, and they use up the tiniest scraps of yarn. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, these are going to make the sweetest decor for my girls' bedrooms, and I've made some for Isla to take to school and give to her friends too. This year ahead, I really want to up my crafting game and build on my current skills. By thinking of my creative side in the same way that I might think of my health and wellness, I can make sure that I schedule in time to focus on my crafting and improve my creativity. Thanks to Skillshare, I have a huge source of inspiration now. The first 500 people to use my link in the description box below will get 1 month absolutely free of Skillshare. So if you're thinking of trying a new craft or building upon your existing skills, this is your perfect opportunity. And a huge thank you to Skillshare for very kindly sponsoring this video. I also have another mini skein project on the needles that I'm really loving at the moment. I bought myself a yarn advent last year from Loom wool, and I've got some video footage actually of all of the yarn, so you can have a look at that, and I'll pop that in because it's much easier and much better to do that than trying to lift up all of the skeins to camera. But it's very different, this advent, compared to the one that I got previously in 2023. My 2023 advent was from Beehive Yarns, and it was very fun, very bright and colourful, which is lovely. It's great for things like socks and blankets. The problems that I have with yarn like that is that I don't tend to wear bright colours. And I decided this time to go for the Loom advent. The topic, or the theme, that's the word that I'm trying to think of. The theme of the yarn was Twilight Garden, and it's all focused on the colours of a garden at twilight. So there's lots of greens, lots of browns and neutrals. There's some really pretty pinks in there, but they're very wearable shades, I think, much colours that I'm much more likely to wear. I told you that my English is very bad today. They're all colours that I am much more likely to wear, so I didn't want to make like a blanket or something, and I didn't want to make socks because I wanted to make something that used up the whole advent together, so that I could have one project and say, yes, that's been created using my advent from 2024. So my original thought was to make a Friday tee by Petite Knit, which I'm sure you're all aware of again, but if not, I'll pop a photo in so you can see. But it's a striped t-shirt, and my thinking was that I could do each colour from the advent for a different stripe. So I contacted Jess from Loom Wool, and I asked her if she could recommend just a main colour that I could use that would go with everything. And I'm just going to lean across. She recommended this yarn here, which is called Milk Tea, and she was very kind to dye up 2 skeins of that for me. She did warn me that it might not go with some of the paler colours, that they might blend into each other too much, but I was okay with that. So I thought, because when I actually came to putting that yarn together and laying it all out with all of the mini skeins from the advent, I realised that actually, yeah, I wasn't 100% happy with it. So there were a few of the paler colours that didn't work with it. There wasn't enough contrast between those and this main colour. And I thought, okay, well, I can just take those out, that's fine, and I'll just use some of the darker colours. But I found that when I started taking out some of the paler colours, it kind of upset the whole balance of the full thing. It didn't look right. I had too many dark colours, and I just I started to have regrets basically, and a second thoughts. I thought it's not going to work. And it's nice to have, like I say, just one full project that uses all of the yarn together. I didn't want to just use some of the yarn and then use some of the other skeins for something else. So I have started just a very plain and simple scarf. Let me hold it up to show you. Okay, it's quite long. It is getting. Hang on a sec. I've just dropped something on the floor now. It is getting to the stage now where it's getting kind of difficult to take photos and things off because it is so long. And this is how it's looking at the moment. So this is the bottom here, and I'm essentially making it's just a big tube. So it's double-sided. I used Judy's Magic Cast On to cast on the stitches in the beginning. So I did start off by working at Magic Loop, but once it got to say here, I decided to change it to just these circular needles, just because it's so much easier just to knit round and round as opposed to having to, switch the needles when you're doing Magic Loop. And I'm not doing a set number of rows or anything. I'm literally just knitting until I run out of yarn and I don't have enough to get all the way around again. And then I'm joining the next colour. And I'm not working them completely randomly. I'm not doing it in a particular order. I'm not doing it in the order that I opened the colours or anything like that. But I am giving some thought to how the colours look next to each other, and I'm trying to split up the darker ones and make sure that there's a good mix between the lights and darks. I don't want two browns together or two pinks together and things like that. And so far, it's working up really well, but I can absolutely see myself wearing this. Again, it's probably going to be too warm to wear this by the time I finish, but I'm honestly just having so much fun knitting this. I thought it might be a bit boring because it's just stockinette, but actually, because you've got all of the different colours, it makes it really fun. And I find that I'm always knitting on it to try and get to that next stripe to add the next colour. And the good things, because it's basically just a big tube, I'm kind of using it as a pouch. So I've got my next colour here all lined up, ready to go. So I'm finding these dark evenings quite difficult because I do tend to work on this project in the evening because it's a good TV knitting project. And then if I'm ready to start and add the next colour, I find that they just look completely different when they're in electric lighting as opposed to natural lighting. So I always make sure that I have the next skein chosen ready so that I can just make a start with it straight away. But I am really, really enjoying that. I've had a few requests for the pattern, and I'm a little bit hesitant to give it to people yet, just because I'm not sure, obviously, how it's going to work out. I might get to the end of it potentially and wish that I'd cast on some more stitches or maybe not so many, for example. So yeah, I'm going to just keep stum about that for now, and I'll probably share that later on in the year once it's finished. But I'm really, really enjoying it, and it's really nice working with some colour. My one regret with this sweater, the one thing that I really don't like is the colour. It's not that I don't like it, but like I mentioned, that this was using up some old yarn that I'd bought previously, and my excuse me, one of my things for this year is to be a bit braver with colour, and I don't think I would ever be the type of person to, I'm not going to come on in the next episode and be wearing really bright technicolours and things like that, or like a rainbow jumper, but I just want to branch out and use some maybe more like muted shades of colours, not just greys and beiges and things like that. So yeah, it's nice to have that because those colours are definitely colourful but in a wearable way. So yeah, I want to incorporate more shades like that into my wardrobe. Which is why I want to maybe use the burgundy colour to make another one of these. I think that would be really nice. Even though I decided I wasn't going to use the Advent yarn for the Friday tea, I still really wanted to make one of those. I'm starting to think already about all of my spring and summer knitting. We're going away again in May, and I don't want to make the same mistake as I did last year and leave everything to the last minute, because there are lots of things that I want to make myself to wear this summer, and particularly for that holiday. So I want to give myself plenty of time to do it. So I still really wanted to make the Friday tea. Luckily, when I ordered the milk tea yarn, which is the plain cream yarn as the main colour, when I was on Jesse's website, it came up with a recommendation. You know how when you're buying something and it will say, if you like this, we think you might also like this yarn. And it came up with a yarn called Persimmon, and it was just such a gorgeous colour. And I couldn't buy it at the time because I didn't have a project that I could use it for. But you know, when you see some yarn and you're thinking, oh, I need to find something now to make something with that. So when I decided that I wasn't going to use the Advent yarn to make the Friday tea, I knew I had the perfect opportunity to buy a skein of that yarn. I only needed one as well, so it's really, really good. So it is here, and it looks like this. It is slightly more dull in real life than it is on the website, but that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I think this is a really, really nice colour. I think potentially I could get away with wearing a top in this colour. I think it would look nice. The other good thing about the Friday tea is that it allows you to be a little bit more bold with colour, because it kind of mutes it and tones it down anyway, just because of the fact that the colours are just very thin stripes. So I have made a start with the Friday tea. I haven't done much, and it's still on my 40 centimetre cable, so it's very, very small still. Let me hold it up to show you what I've done so far. And here it is. So this is actually the back. It looks tidgy. This is actually the back, and then I've done the short rows, which I did wrong. Luckily, I realised that I'd done them wrong. You know, when you're knitting and you kind of hesitate and think, I'm not quite sure how to do this, and you do it one particular way, but then as you carry on, you know in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I don't think that's quite right. And I think I did two more short rows before I realised, and then I had to tink it back. So luckily I did realise, but essentially you have these raglan stitches, and there's 13 stitches in between each increase there. And it said in the pattern that the beginning and the end stitch of that section will always be a knit stitch, because it's made in what's it called, broken rib. It's knitted in broken rib. So that's one round of knit one purl one, and then one round of just plain knitting. The rounds of plain knitting go about 10 times faster than the rounds of ribbing. And yeah, I got confused because I was doing short rows, I was working with the wrong side of the work facing me. So I did the knit stitches like it asked for, but because I was on the opposite side, I should have done purl stitches. So yeah, if you're making this and that bit confuses you, that's what you should be doing. But again, it's very similar to this in that it's got the folded neckline. So this neckline was actually about that big. You knit kind of halfway, do some double knitting, which makes it curl over like this, and it just looks so nice and neat, doesn't it? And then you continue knitting, and then the instructions were kind of funny. It said that I needed to pick up all of the stitches from the bottom onto a spare needle, which I didn't have, and then knit them together. And I've done a folded neckline like that a few times now, but I've never done it in that way. So I just ignored that and I just did it how I'd done this one. And I don't think it makes a difference or anything. It still looks really nice. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It is going to take a very long time. I've heard people comment actually that when they've made this that it is lovely, but it just takes forever because of the broken rib. And I'm also hoping that when I finish this, that I'm going to have enough leftover yarn to make a pair of socks to match, because how gorgeous would they look? Because it's sock yarn, and I could just do it exactly the same. This is the main, and then do the stripes in this, and then I could have a matching pair of socks to go with my Friday tee. I think it'll look gorgeous. So that is kind of the projects that I'm trying to concentrate on at the moment. I am trying to be a bit better and a bit more focused with my projects, just so that I see more progress with them. Because that's the thing, when you have lots and lots of projects on the go, you can spend the same amount of time knitting and crocheting in total, but because it's spread over so many projects, you don't really tend to, you don't see the benefit, do you? From working when all your efforts are spread across so many projects, as opposed to spending all of your time focusing on one project. So hopefully the next time I film, I am hoping, or I'm planning to do these monthly now. Yeah, I've got a bit more time now to spend on my YouTube and things, and so I really want to keep up to date and do monthly podcasts now, like I used to. So hopefully by the time I come back at the end of next month or the end of this month, you'll be able to see some significant progress. Sorry, I'm getting confused because it's actually the last day of January today when I'm filming this, but this video is actually going to go out in February. So I'm thinking next month, but of course it will be this month by the time you watch this. I have one more project, one more work in progress to share with you, and then I'm going to have a quick chat with you about some future plans that I've got. And this next project also overlaps with some acquisitions that I've got, because I had to buy some new yarn in order to start this. So recently, this Handmade Life, I think, I always doubt myself, but I'm pretty sure the designer's name is Olivia. She came out with a new sock pattern, and as soon as I saw it, I loved it. And these are the Nook socks. And you'll have seen it because it's a relatively new pattern and it's been all over. The thing that I really liked about it is that the heel and the sole of the sock are in garter stitch, and I've never seen that before. But I didn't have a suitable yarn. I don't have that much of a stash anymore. Well, I didn't at the time, there's a huge bag of yarn in front of me, that I'm going to show you in a moment. At the time, I didn't have any sock yarn that was suitable, because the skeins that I do have, I think I've got like 2 skeins of sock yarn. They're all speckled or variegated, and I'm trying to move away a little bit from buying speckled and variegated yarn for socks now, because I find that it makes it difficult to find a pattern. It makes it difficult to find a pattern because often the colours in the yarn obscure the texture and things like that. It's difficult to find ones that work well together. And this one in particular, the Nook socks, work best, I think, just with a plain yarn. And so I bought some, and I'm going to show you now. I'll show you the sock first, seeing as it's in my hand, but I cast these on yesterday, so I've not done a great deal, and they look a bit odd on the needles because the full thing is knit in rib. So if I kind of put my fingers there and open it, then hopefully you can see the ribbing a bit better. But obviously when you let it go, oh no, I've just pulled a load of stitches off. What numpty. When you let go of the needle and it all cinches together, you can't see the detail of the ribbing, is what I'm trying to say. Right, crisis averted. They're all back on there now. Yeah, they're all good. I thought I'd dropped a stitch, but I haven't. They're all on there. So this yarn is dropped Nord. We seem to be talking about a lot of drops now this episode. I wanted some plain sock yarn, and I'm a little bit constrained in terms of budget this time. So I got Drops Nord, which I've used before for shawls and things like that, but never for socks. But it is a sock yarn, and it's incredibly affordable. They come in 50-gram balls, and so I've ordered 2 balls of each colour, so that I've got a lot of options. And in total, it works out at about £5 for a pair of socks, and it is so soft. It's really gorgeous. It's lovely to knit with. The stitch definition is beautiful. I'm really happy with it. The one that I'm using at the moment is called Caramel, and that is shade number 23. I've got them all written down because it's one of those annoying yarns that doesn't have the shade name on the ball band, it just has the number on. So this is Caramel, and I believe this yarn does have some alpaca in, so if you look closely, you can probably tell because you can kind of see the little hairy alpaca bits, but that just means it's really lovely and warm. Let me grab the bag of yarn that's opposite, and then I'm going to show you all of the colours that I got. They're lovely, apart from one that I'm not keen on. Okay, so the first colour that I got, I've actually used before in a shawl, and this is Pearl Grey Mix, and that is shade number 8. And I'll just look on the ball band actually. Yay, it's got 45% alpaca, 30% polyamide, and 25% wool. But honestly, it's so gorgeous and soft. So I already knew that I liked that colour, and then I decided to get some different ones to try. This next one is the only one that I'm kind of not keen on. This one is shade number 8, and it is called Fog. I'm just not a blue person, but I just wanted to get a variety of colours so that I've got lots of options in stash. The next one is Rust Mix, which is shade number 11. That is coming across on camera a lot brighter. It's also not focusing. It's coming across a lot brighter than it is in real life. It's a little bit more orangey and muted in real life, but very lovely. I have got Light Peach, which is shade number 27, which is this really pretty pink colour. And I've got patterns in mind for pretty much most of these. This one is Dandelion, and that's shade number 28. I really like this one. These are going to be so pretty for spring or summer. I'm picturing a really nice like lacy design or something for those ones. I have got Marzipan, which is shade number 29. It's going to be lovely for cables, I think, or just lace again. And yeah, and then the last one is Caramel, which is the ones that I had to cast on immediately to go with this pattern. I have been working through or looking through my Ravelry library recently. I really want to go through and try and make some things that I've got in there. I've got a bad habit of buying patterns when they're on sale or when they're newly released, and then just never making them because I forget that they're there. So I've been through, and there are some patterns that I've got that I definitely want to make. So I'm going to have a quick chat with those about those with you. They're both socks, but one of them is called the Cassandra Socks, and that's a pattern by Laura McLean, who has a podcast as Sunday Morning Knits. So if you've not seen that, please go watch it because Laura is lovely. She makes the loveliest things. She designs sock patterns. She's super talented, and she's got a really cute mischievous cat, who, if I remember correctly, is called Maeve. But yeah, she's lovely, so go check her out. But the Cassandra Socks, it's a free pattern, so definitely go and take a look at that. And yeah, I'm not quite decided on what colour, but I definitely want to make those. Those are next in my queue. Another pattern that I've got in my Ravelry library that I bought ages ago, and I know that I've chatted about on the podcast, is the Isla socks, and that's a pattern by Fibre and Fern. And it's an all-over lace pattern. I'm not sure why I didn't make it. I know that I actually bought that and printed the pattern off, and usually when I do that, it's because I'm ready to cast them on. But I just never started them, and I'm not sure why. I think maybe I just felt a bit intimidated, but I really want to give those a go. One of my aims for this year is to be not braver, but to try more things. I think with knitting and crocheting, sometimes it's easy to get a bit stuck in your ways. So it's like with socks, for example, often you'll either be cuff down or toe up. And I'm definitely a cuff down person, but if there is a pattern that I want to make and it's toe up, I don't want that to stop me. I don't want to think, oh no, I'd have bought that pattern, but it's toe up, so I'm not going to make it. I want to just try new things a bit more this year. I also would like to make a bottom up sweater, but yeah, I'd have to find the pattern. Although one that I could try again actually for a bottom up sweater would be the Pink Fizz sweater, which is a pattern by Andrea Mallory, because I did cast that on at one point. I didn't like the yarn, so maybe with different yarn, I could have another go at that, and that's trying something new again, isn't it? The other project that I have planned or in my queue is the Poppy Tea by Petite Knit. Last year or the year before, I made the Everyday Sweater by Andrea Mallory, and I used some yarn from Bird Street, which I don't have with me, but I never wore that sweater, so I've decided to frog it. So all of the yarn is back in balls now. I need to reskein it and soak it, but I'm going to make a poppy tea with that, which is going to be just like a nice in-between knit, I think. I don't think I'd describe it as a summer knit, but definitely not a winter knit. So I'll pop a picture in of that t-shirt so you can see it. And another thing that I've got queued that I've got the yarn for is it's a camisole by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I bought some yarn. I bought 2 balls of Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the colour Cardigan quite a while ago now, because I'd planned to make the camisole number 2, but I had second thoughts because I realised that tops like that, where they've got the really thin straps, just really don't work for me, because I don't like that you can see bra straps, and I definitely cannot go without a bra, and strapless bras just make me feel uncomfortable. So I decided not to make that, but I've made things harder for myself by only having the 2 balls of the yarn, which is all that's needed for the camisole number 2, but most of the other patterns and things that use that yarn need 3 balls, which if I get now is going to be a completely different dye lot. So there's a camisole. I'm pretty sure it's the number 7. I will pop a picture in, and yeah, I'll put it on screen anyway, but that's also in my queue. I really want to get some yarn that I've got in stash and patterns that I've got in my library used up this year. So I'm looking forward to making a start on those. I've got lots of lovely things planned. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I'd love to know what you've been working on lately, so leave me a comment and share what you've been up to. And I will see you all again next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.